Good evening, Saints fans, and welcome to another edition here with the teams. The teams have just dropped. We're going to go through, dissect the ins and outs, and really sort of glorify in a way last week's performance. It was an epic win up against the Swans, top of the ladder. So let me introduce our guests. We have Alana, Ollie, and for the first time this year as well, welcome Scarlett. Thank you all for having me. First and foremost, we do want to shout out our sponsors, Southside Pizzas, the local Moorabbin pizzerias. Get them, especially this weekend, up away against the Crows Saturday night. Perfect dinner. Scarlett, I'm going to start with you because you're fresh to the broadcasting team. How was the emotions on Sunday night after the Swans game?
Unreal, absolutely unreal. I couldn't get home quick enough to watch the replay. I'll be honest. I think I'm up to about 4 or 5 now. Just amazing, so gutsy. Like one of those games, I feel like halfway through, you're like, this isn't the kind of game we win. Really felt like that close to the bounce with Rowe as well, but no, so gutsy and so proud.
Absolutely. It was something that we spoke about last week. There was a few comments, and Ollie, you sort of brought it up as well. This is sort of the game that when everything's pushed to the side and we sort of, have no chance, that we actually pull it out of our ass and play a real collective game. Yeah, there were some standouts, but apart from a little bit of a lapse in the second quarter, we controlled most of that game. Again, Ollie, I know you would have been at the game. Describe that for me, how you felt from the start to the finish in terms of how we played compared to how we played for the majority of the year this year.
Yeah, no, it was one of those ones that, you get to, halfway through the third quarter, and it just felt like it was going to slip away. And we were kind of just like, they got a run on. There was the couple of umpiring decisions that sort of stopped our run of goals where everyone was going mental, at least behind the Saints goals they were. And then Sydney kick a couple, or Heaney kick 2 in a row. And you kind of it takes the wind out of the sails. Yeah. But the fight back was incredible. And everyone was going absolutely bunter at the end of the game, and the crowd just rose with the tension of the game. So it was incredible.
Yeah, it was one of those games, and Alana, I'll get your thoughts as well. But we've had a pretty disappointing year. Let's not push that to the side. But to actually come out against a really not as struggling in like Sydney, that they're top of the ladder. They're not doing the worst, but they lost a week before to Fremantle to a kick after the siren. Funnily enough, or unfunnily enough, Logan McDonald had that chance again and still missed it. But it's one of those games where you can look back and go, all right, that's going to be possibly like the turning point going forward. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I just listened to Ross's press conference earlier from today, and he sort of touched on, moments in time that can really change your momentum or change things for the whole team. Like he touched on moments with Freo and earlier when he'd coached our team, like up against, I think it was a Gold Coast away, we got a really inspiring comeback win then as well. And I'm hoping this is what this can be for us, where the team just gets some belief now and knows what they're capable of. And I think it actually started, I know we'll touch on him soon, but the way Filippo come out that game full of confidence and belief in himself, like he looked like a different player. And I reckon that just spread across the whole group. What he was able to bring, it just was, just give you shivers to finally have a player come in and do that, especially, bit of pressure to come in after being in the Rezzies and, top 10 pick, he's had that on his back, and to come in and do what he did, I think just set the tone. And from Steele down, I reckon it just, everyone was probably just a bit blown away and they all got on board. And I think we can go a long way if we can just continue with that sort of self-belief, and not only in yourself but in your teammate. Like I just think that we had a lot of chains where we didn't second guess, we just went with it because we thought, I think it was Higgins who handballed a great handball over the top, set up
the
play.
Henry then hit Sharman and that sort of kickstarted everything.
Yeah,
100%.
And I just think we want to be playing like that, but normally we're second guessing and we're not taking that risk. And I just loved that we played that attacking risk brand and got it going and delivered. Yeah, it was amazing.
Absolutely. I love that you touched on that free-flowing sort of, instinct football, because we are going to need it this week in Adelaide against the Crows. I'm going to bring up the teams. As I mentioned, they have just dropped. And there's 2 outs and effectively 2 ins for us. For Saturday night, we have Windhager out. Injury looks like it's a hamstring, quite significant if I'm not mistaken. Possibly I'll put him on ice for the rest of the year if I'm bringing my doctor's glasses out. And then Brad Hill's going to miss this week for personal reasons. Hasn't been too much on that as such. But the 2 ins, it's going to be quite controversial. And I want to get everyone's opinion from home of the ins that are in this week. Riley Bonner and Zach Jones. We'll probably talk about the whipping boys that we've had this year already. Were absolutely amazing on the weekend, but these are probably 2 that have been the biggest from a Saints perspective each week. Scarlett, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the ins this week with those 2 older heads coming back against the Crows?
Super interesting for me, and I don't have anything against them personally. I feel like they both are very talented footballers. I feel like you can kind of take 2 approaches to this kind of end of the season. Like, obviously, where statistically, unless you're like me and love playing ladder predictor, not going to make finals. So there's no real point pushing it. But in my mind, you bring in those younger boys who I feel like have deserved a spot, probably more than a Jones or a Bonner, who, kind of talent aside, we know what they're capable of. We know what Zach Jones kind of looks like in this team. I think try something new. I'm a bit uninspired by it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of flow that we're getting from the comments as well. Mm-hmm. Ollie, share the same thoughts, or you got some different perspectives on the ins this week?
Yeah, no, pretty similar. I'm seeing a lot of Hugo Garcia snubbed and that sort of thing. I think they played him in a different role last week in the VFL, so I'd say that's why he hasn't come in. But seeing Angus McLennan in the emergencies, it feels like, although Riley Bonner kind of seemed like a no-brainer to bring in, it feels like one of those games where we could have debuted someone. We're coming off a big win and we're going against an Adelaide Crows team who's not performing well. They've been hit by injury and suspension. So it feels like one of those where we could have tried something new, but I suppose they've just gone with the same old again.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at their list, and not to touch on Adelaide too much, but their forward line is quite tall, which is a little bit of a concern. So maybe McLennan might be that carryover emergency, just in case it's a dry night and Ross has a little bit of a move up his sleeve. Alana, we know what Zach Jones can bring, but given that Bradley Hill, and there's a comment here from Jan that I wanted to bring up. Sorry, Scarlett, not to rub you out there, but happy with Bonner for Hill as long as he plays more forward, can link up quite well. Is this sort of the last opportunity for Riley to push up the ground, not be on that half-back line? I know he's listed there, but play a more wing forward role and get that space?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, when I first saw the ins, I thought, Windhanger actually played sort of halfback last week. So for me, Bonner was sort of the replacement for Windy. But I guess you could say prior to him going out, Bonner was pushing up the ground a little bit more. So yeah, perhaps he could play that role, I suppose. I've actually not minded Bonner this year. I know he's been a bit of a whipping boy and his disposal can be a bit iffy, but I actually don't mind what he brings, especially when it comes off. Defensively, not so much. I will agree that's not his strong suit, so that's why I like the idea of pushing him further up the ground. I think he can be a bit more deadly and a bit more of an asset further up. So yeah, happy for him in that sense, but definitely no Brad Hill, that's for sure. But he's been very consistent for us, so I don't mind that in. But yeah, I would have preferred a Garcia to Jones because I think he's tried and tested, and I'd prefer seeing what Garcia can bring after a bit of a stint in the VFL as well.
I'd love to see Garcia, especially for the last month. He's played a bit of time in the twos now. I know they've tried to change his focus from being second to the ball and being high tackle numbers to actually winning the clearances, getting the ball first and disposing of it, cleanly. So maybe that's the focus for him at the moment. But I do agree. I think Bonner sort of replaces Hill if he plays on that wing role. I thought Sean Maker did a fantastic job last week. Nearly brought the house down. If it wasn't for a free kick and possible VAR, goal review. But bringing Jones in again, it it doesn't make sense as to where we're at, where we're wanting to go to bring in those old heads. Even for there's a comment here from Jack that I'll bring up as well. Would have rathered Ross for Windhager, myself more of a like for like, which in that aspect comparison, 100%. But again, we're at a point now where, as Scarlett said, ladder predictor, even the most biased and hopeful Saints fan can realize that finals is not the question or not the answer now this year. So let's get that extra exposure. Let's bring in a McClellan, bring back Hasty, get Garcia and get that exposure. And getting into games like Sydney where they're experiencing those tight finishes against good quality opposition and, getting in the wins, it's going to change the mindset heading into next year. Ollie, last week at Sydney, most accurate with kick for God knows how long. And that's ultimately what won the game in the end. But how did you make the forward line sort of combine? And I know Max King's not there, and I want to cue the Max King comments because we are still better with him in the team. But is it because of his absence now there's so much difference in our forward line makeup?
I think we saw the same thing at the start of last year. So because Max King's such a big presence, even if we don't kick it to him, he's drawing eyes. And when he's not there, people don't know where to look. So we've got guys like Sharman and Higgins cutting in and running everywhere, and Membry's doing the same thing. So it creates an element of not some element of surprise, but it's just chaos. You don't know where the ball's going to go. And I think that worked in our favor. And what was interesting was our delivery seemed better. We seemed to hit more leads at least from where I was seeing. That's what it looked like. And they've put Nasiah listed on the wing this week. And I think we saw him get forward a little bit more. He had a couple of shots at goal, tried to hit a couple of leads inside 50. And I think bringing him up the ground will help even more so with our forward line structure and what was so successful last week.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not the personnel, it's the delivery. Scarlett, I know you're a massive Filippo fan. How good was it to see him just back out, not even dominating, but just back on the field, but playing with the confidence? He was probably the instigator with that delivery, hitting Henry, finding the ball in the middle of the ground. How good was it just seeing him back out in the field?
Unreal. And I think you said it perfectly. It's the confidence he has in himself. Obviously, going back to the VFL, he's spoken about it a little bit, that it was a good opportunity for him to hone his craft a bit. But in my eyes, I think it was largely a confidence issue for him. He, had such an incredible first year, and I don't think he was really used to having that kind of attention on him as he did the start of this season. So just incredible to see him play with that freedom and confidence a little bit. And I think on a larger scale with the whole team, that's kind of what I feel like we've lacked a lot this year, that confidence and that excitement. So having Mateus really spearhead that attack was amazing.
I'm not sure how many of our episodes you've watched previously, Scarlett, but I've always sort of said we lack that X factor. Is Mateus that X factor that we are missing?
100%. Yeah. I think maybe in a, and I don't want to make the comparison too early, but in a Bont kind of way where he's just a workhorse, but a put the team on his back kind of X factor. But yeah, he's so special. 100%.
I love the comparison to Bonks. I thought his goal in the last quarter was literally if you put it side by side, it would be pretty identical with the way the Bont runs, the way the Bont kicks, and the way they both celebrate. I thought this is exact comparisons here. So I think we've hit the nail on the head with Pooh, and I think his month in the VFL has done him the world of good. Alana, I'm going to jump to you because I like to give you the defense. I think you love the defenders every week. Again, I sort of touched on it before, whipping boys. Dougal Howard's been one of ours since he probably crossed over from Port, if we're completely honest. But I thought that was probably the best game he's played for us all year. Sort of break it down. How did our defenders do? And then, specifically Dougal and Cal Wilkie, how well they played.
Oh, Dougal, he was like a soldier down back. He was just so reliable, and I just actually love watching him play. And I think that's probably the first time I've said that about Dougs. He's normally just, sort of goes under the radar and used to sort of being holding your breath a bit when he gets the ball. But this year he's been Mr. sort of consistent for me every time he's come in and played. And it's been unfortunate that he's had those hammy injuries, because I feel like every time he strings a few games together, he gets injured. But yeah, he was so solid for us. He didn't make a mistake all day. Very reliable, made the right decision. And then when he touched that ball on the line, I actually thought that was a goal to Sydney at the time, and thought they were just going to waste their time with the review. And what an effort! And he dived into the crowd, and I was like, oh, poor bloke, he's gone to that length, and it's a goal. But to have it reviewed and have it be worth it, I reckon like that changed the game for me. And from there, we just didn't hold back, and he really got us going. And then Cal Wilkie was just like, that was just Cal Wilkie to hit a tee his game. He had 14 marks. That mark in particular against Heaney in the last quarter arguably saved the game. Such a crucial moment to win that one-on-one. He's just huge. And I think these wins, I'm hoping your Josh Battles of the world, when you're part of a win like that and you're getting thrown offers from other clubs, you just hope that maybe it makes him think again and give him something to think about. Like prior to this game, I think he's thinking, where are the Saints headed? I know it's based off one game and it might be wishful thinking, but if we can keep delivering that for the next 7 weeks, because I think Battle is another one who's crucial to that back six, and he's also capable of pushing forward when we need it. So he's just a really crucial player. I'm probably going to touch on all six backmen now, but
go for it. Take it away. The mic is yours.
He Sinks pushed into the middle a little bit, which I seem to change my mind every week with Sinks, because he just seems to do the job no matter where you put him. So if he's playing in the back line, I'm like, yeah, keep him in the back line. If he plays in the midfield, I'm like, I love it, put him in the middle. So maybe we just need 2 Sinks. But I really, really was impressed with his game. And then I'll just mention Webster very quickly as well, because I think he doesn't get the accolades, but I think he is just, I would not be surprised if he's one of Ross Lyon's favourites. He comes in every week, does the job, gets clobbered in the face, no fuss, just gets on with it. And another one who's just really important to our side. Even like maybe not such a hard nut as like a Stevie Baker type, but same sort of role player in our team, where I think Ross Lyon just completely values what he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate because Josh disagrees with you and says Webster needs to be dropped. But I actually agree with you. I think Webster just, you sort of know when you put him on the team sheet, you know what you got to get. You don't have to talk to him. You don't have to get into his face and say, this is what we expect of you. We know what he's going to do. How that wasn't a free kick has got me stuffed. And then how Heaney gets a week for it has also got me stuffed. No answers for that one completely. Ollie, I'm going to jump to you now. Let's talk about the midfield, because Alana touched on Sinks a little bit and he did push up into the midfield, but we sort of spoken a bit this year where we haven't had any leaders step up. Now, I thought in the last quarter, Filippo did his thing. Henry was instrumental in the third quarter especially, but I thought there was a passage of plays probably with about 3 or 4 minutes to go in the game, and Sinclair just bullied his way through about 3 or 4 Swans. And I thought, finally, we actually have someone who's willing to put his body on the line and just get the ball forward in a contest that actually matters, to sort of stop the run that Sydney may have had. Did you see it that way in his game and Steele as well?
Yeah, I think we saw him lift a little bit in comparison to the last few weeks. I think, and hearing Steely talk post-game, he was talking about how the crowd lifted everything up a little bit more. And I feel like that was the last little boost he needed, because we've had some quiet home games that have still been close. But, we've seen those sort of midfielders not really perform to their best. And I think, like you touched on with Henry, I'm going to put Ronnie Burns in that category as well. They were listed half forward, but they kind of both played very high and through the midfield and sometimes half back. Like Ronnie was running down the wing out of the half back line a few times. And I think that added a layer of like, who do we take? Because Naz is there, Sinks is there, Burns is there, Henry's there. So we've got these silky movers who can hit that chip kick and then run through and get the ball back. And I think that sort of helped us move the ball forward, which is what we've lacked. We've been kind of gotten to a good spot and then we've gone, we just have to go long now. But we kind of looked short and then through the middle. And then That was like the one I think Alana mentioned earlier, where it was Higgins handball to Henry, then to Sharman. That we haven't seen almost all year. And I think that's why the midfield group works so well. And like this week, you've got Naz on one wing, Silky right foot, Mason Wood on the other wing, Silky left foot. Like our kick inside 50 should be perfect. Not perfect, but, they should be good this week. Hunter Clark was really good. His efficiency was low, but I think that's just because he had a few that he kind of just kicked off the ground. He still did his, Scott Pendlebury-esque, just slow with the ball, but still gets the ball out. I can't fault the midfield at all. Mateus, we've talked about, he had an incredible stat line. That's just what we wanted to see. And it's been coming for a while. We've seen his form in the VFL. He's shown glimpses last year. That was the perfect poo game. Rowan was good as always, and he drifted forward as well, which was nice. And he was not beaten by Grundy in the ruck by any stretch, because even if he was beaten in the tap outs, he had him covered around the ground as well. And then the captain stood up like we always know he can. So, yeah, it was a really all well-rounded midfield performance.
100%. I was going to touch on Rowe just a bit because I didn't feel like he dominated the game. He definitely played well, but for what the extent that we know what he can do, he didn't, shoot the house down. But those 2 goals just in critical points where, Swans could have gotten away just a little bit, but he hits one on the boundary 40 meters out. Like, that's, absolutely class. And just sort of boost everyone up just a little bit to sort of keep within touching distance. Jack agrees with you as well regarding Ryan Burns. Low-key had a good game. Not even low-key, Jack. It was definitely a great game. His availability on that wing was absolutely insane. Scarlett, I'm going to get your opinion on the forward line. And in particular, Jack Higgins. Again, he's probably been a little bit of a whipping boy. It's good that all these players are starting to perform and really make us eat our words. But his pressure in that third quarter, describe it for us. How insane was that?
Just incredible. I think, he has been a little bit of a whipping boy, but mostly just due to a couple of brain fades throughout the year in those high-pressure moments, which I think when you're playing for a team that's delivering inside the forward 50 is kind of nothing to write home about. You can't really blame him for those moments, I think. And, just that energy that he brings is so incredible. He's really added some super strong, running and chasing to his game this year. He's just so impressive. What's his goal tally at for the year thus far?
He's up to 27, 28,
28, yeah. Just an unbelievable game from Jack.
Yeah, and I think I saw something on Twitter or X in relation to that. Like, he's missed 3 games for a suspension that was, questionable at best. And he's, still kicking more goals than I think like Charlie Cameron and a few other, big name small forwards. So, if he was in a top ranked team, he'd be getting all the accolades that he deserves. Comment here from Harvey. Excuse me, Harvey. Definitely don't drop Webster. One of the best lockdown defenders, kept Happily to 1 goal, and he kicked that goal literally on the siren. Very consistent player. From Marshall, Trash Ins, goddammit, was hoping for Hugo in for Windy. As I said, I don't think it'll be the end we see of Hugo this year. I think he'll be returning for hopefully the last month or so. And Kenny's just reminded me as well, Brad Hill is out for personal reasons due to his wife expecting a baby. So congratulations to the Hill family, if that is the case. And hopefully we shall see them in 18, 19 years when the father, daughter, son can pop up for the Saints. So he's due to play his 250th soon as well. So he'll be itching to get back out on the ground. Now, we spent a lot of time dissecting all the good performances from the weekend, but I do want to go through just some, some players that we're probably looking for a bit more, even though it was a collective performance against the Swans. Who's in for a big week this week? And we'll start with you, Alana.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad having to pick someone out after last week. And I feel like it's another one that we do touch on a fair bit. And I can't question his effort, but I'd just like things to go a bit more right for him. And that's Mitch Owens. Like, I feel like he's always amongst it. He's always putting the pressure on. But, you know, I just feel like maybe even a bit like Filippo was a bit earlier in the year where things just don't go his way. And it's just like frustrating. I just want him to have one of those games where it's like, you know, when a player has a purple patch and they get momentum, I want to see him have one of those games where he just takes it on. And I don't know, maybe he can even follow like a Filippo and see it's, you know, it's not impossible. It can be done. So just to get his confidence back, I think is another key thing for him. And we all know what he's capable of. So I'd love him to just go to Adelaide and have a big day out and, you know, maybe kick 2 or 3, bit like the game he had against Freo where we sort of thought he was back to his best then. It just sort of died down again. So if he can bring that back, that's probably what I'm looking for. But nothing against the guy. I think his effort's always there and he's such a competitor. So, yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And we're probably 2 or 3 weeks late from, you know, giving him a run in the twos like we did with Mateus to get that confidence back. It's probably too late to do it now for the rest of the year. But yeah, I think his effort's good. His performances have been inconsistent. Love for him to return back to Adelaide and get, you know, some really good form. Based off last week, Ollie, your thoughts? Who needs a little bit of a lift up for this week against the Crows?
I found it really difficult to pick someone out. I was going to talk about Hunter Clark because of his disposal efficiency, but I felt like that was a little bit like didn't matter because we still felt like he had a good game. The only thing I've got is either one of Zach Jones or Ben Patton because I think one of them will be the sub. So whoever gets the full game or gets to start the game, we've questioned why they're in the team a little bit. So show us why. Give us a good game. Give us some effort. Give us wherever you play, whether Jones is in the forward line, in the midfield, Patton's forward line or back line, show us a good game and why you deserve to be in the team because there's younger guys and people banging the door down that we think could get a game over you. So, you know, cement your spot.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Wooden Spoons agrees, has to be Owens. Chris also agrees. Owens needs to find a couple of goals and marks this week. Just want to touch on a comment here from Harvey. What's happened to Stocker? From my understanding, he's just returning to fitness. He played in the twos last week, and I think he's expected to play there again this week and then maybe be recalled next week for us, but we'll wait and see on that one. Scarlett, based off, you know, Sunday's game last week, who's someone that needs to pull their shorts up and get a bit, you know, in the action this week against the Crows?
Yeah, I definitely echo the sentiments around Mitchie. I think he's just he's struggling to find his form a little bit, but like Lana said, just having that little purple patch, I think is just going to be the thing that gets him going. And potentially controversially, I feel a little bit uncomfortable saying this because I love him so much. But Darcy Wilson, I think his form is based on, I think he needs a rest. And not for lack of effort. But yeah, I mean, obviously he's not rested this week, but if he can pull out a show-stopping game, I will be eating it up.
Yeah, I think Darcy's definitely, and it's probably no fault of his own. I'd love for Ross just to be like, look, let's just give you a week. We saw what he did to Mateus last year, played every game, including the final. He's probably trying to do that again this year with Darcy. Whether it's beneficial or not, we'll find out, I guess, in the next, 18 months to 2 years for that one. But I question it as well. But looking at Adelaide's list and sort of the way we performed last week, hopefully that can continue again on Saturday night. What's your main concern with the Adelaide Crows, Alana?
Oh, going off previous record, it has to be bloody Tex, who always has a day out against us, and I'm completely over it. So I'm actually looking forward to an in-form Dougal matching up against him with some help to see how that sort of plays out. Because, yeah, he loves playing against us, and can't stand it. So, we need to shut him down. Don't let him get going, because he's the type of player that when he does get going, they all follow suit. So I think it's very handy that Rankin's out because he would have been my one to watch. But yeah, for some reason, Tex just sees the lineup against the Saints and licks his lips. So no, let's not let him have another day out. And obviously got to watch like their Dawsons and Rory Lairds of the world as well. But yeah, my big focus is Tex.
Yeah, no, Jordan Dawson is definitely the one. My Opera View comes out tomorrow, and he was one I definitely focused on. Ollie, looking at the Crows list and how they've been performing, they're much like us. I think I saw SEN's sort of match predictions or match ratings for this weekend's fixtures, and they gave us this game to be like the underachievers Premiership Cup for both the Crows and the Saints, which is probably fair. They've been underwhelming, but they've definitely got the list to turn it on. What gives you the most worries heading into Saturday night?
Pretty much similar to Alana. It's the forward line. They score so heavily against us every single time we play them in Adelaide. And they're just looking at the list, like Tex, Fogarty, Himmelberg's tall, Thilthorpe kills us every single time, and it's his first game back. That's 4 talls. Like, we've got to really compete well in the air, because on the ground they've got Rochelle and Keys, and thankfully we don't have to defend Isaac Rankin, because I would have been extremely worried about that. So their whole forward line is so scary, not necessarily around the ground, but when they get a run on, and they will kill you every single time. So yeah, definitely their forward line. Hopefully the defenders can stick tough like they did last week and force the Crows into some silly mistakes.
Yeah, definitely love the thought process. So we've got the two, Alana and Ollie, thinking the forward line. Scarlett, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for the Saints this week against that Crows lineup?
Very interesting.
Sorry, I was just going to change it up on you.
Well, because I was going to say, like, I think someone's commented as well. They've gone pretty tall. So I think our defense has always been our strong suit. I'm a little bit like antsy seeing Thilthorpe back in, because I think he debuted against us, and that was like nightmarish. So yeah, I think it's a week for our defense to really stand up here against them, especially against like Tex, who always makes a meal out of the Saints game.
Yeah. It used to be Eddie Betts back, when he was a Crow. I've always thought he used to just, no matter what, kick 3 or 4 and win the game for them. Tex has done it the last few times, but they got Fogarty, they got Riley as well. I think they got a good midfield, so they can definitely turn it on. Harvey reckons I'm also scared for Rochelle. All the talk has been about Rankin being out, but people have forgotten a little about Rochelle. And I think he's definitely someone that will benefit with Rankin being out. He starts to get the focus now. That ball use in the forward 50, he could definitely be a worry for us. I know we spoke about the players going from last week that are a little bit under the pump, but I still want to go through under the microscope, because I always sort of classify that as not necessarily someone that's in sort of position to lose their spot, but someone that needs to hold up their end of the bargain as well. Alana, we'll start with you. Who's under the microscope this week for us against the Crows?
Oh, I sort of felt like I did that already with Owens, but probably be the same sort of thing.
Could be the same one.
Yeah. Otherwise, I also like to see, like, the way Ronnie Burns played was just, that's exactly what I was sort of hoping his output would look like. So if I'm probably looking for him to back that up, because he's had a couple of goes at it, sort of come in and out. But I think we touched on, Jones and Patton, like Ollie touched on them coming in and, showing why they're worth keeping in the team. Well, Burns did that. So I'd really like to see him reiterate that again and just really cement his spot this second half of the year, own it, come out and play. Like, if he plays that exact same game, that's just exactly what we're looking for. Like, he doesn't have to have 30 touches and whatnot, but he was just crucial. He had speed. He was amongst it, involved. Won a lot of like those one-on-one contests, or took like crucial marks at crucial times. So, I think I'd be just really looking to see if he can back that up again.
Ollie, I know you sort of mentioned Owens before as well, but under the microscope, as I said, doesn't have to be someone that's under threat of position. Who is it for you this week against the Crows?
I'm going to go with Jack Steele because we saw him stand up this week, and I think against a Crows midfield who's severely depleted because Dawson's playing a lot forward, not so much midfield time. Matt Crouch isn't playing. Like, they've got Rory Laird, who's getting older. Saligo's pretty good. I'll give him that. Saligo and Rochelle will probably rotate. They don't have Rankin either. And then they've got Sam Berry, and I think Zach Taylor, who's starting on the bench, is also a midfielder for them. But I think it's a big week for Jack Steele in the midfield. I think we can kill him in the clearance. And if we beat him in the clearances, like, that goes a long way to winning the game. So if we can beat him in the middle, if he can lay a bunch of tackles like we know he can, have a strong tackle game, maybe 20 touches, 7 or 8 tackles, something like that, then it'll go a long way to winning the game.
Yep, absolutely. And Scarlett, under the microscope, who is it for you this week for the Crows?
Really similar to Steely, I think Hunter Clark. Like, our mids have got to come out strong, and I think Hunter's starting to put together a solid body of work thus far, but I think he needs to build on it because I know we all think he's capable of it, but I think consistency is what's going to get him there. And also, just for fun, I love when our South Australian boys have a great game against either of the Adelaide teams, so I'm keeping an eye out for those ones too.
Absolutely. It's time for Naz to show him what he can do. Chris has mentioned Mateus, and that was actually where I was going to go with him and adding Liam Henry to that. Not because I had a bad performance last week. They absolutely killed it. But for me, that's the standard now. That's the standard for both those two players. You can even chuck Dukes in there as well. That's what we need to see consistently week to week to ensure that, that'll bring the rest of the group up. And then it creates a difference of maybe 2 or 3 really good players to be 6 or 7. And already we're about halfway. And that's only within the midfield group. So midfield times absolutely suiting him. He did an absolute amazing job, but I'd love for him to come out again and get another 2-3 Brownlow votes, kick another goal or 2 and have a massive impact in the middle because it's going to be absolutely massive for him confidence-wise. I'm going to go through some comments now. A lot of these are going to be some quick-fire questions because there's a few responses through here at the moment, which is really good. Just before I do, Jesse reckons Crows got no hope against the Saints. Absolutely would love that to be the case. Starting with Chris, and we'll go through all three of you guys. Are we concerned about Fogarty, Tex, and Thilthorpe or Beams? Seems like they have gone toll. I know we touched on it a little bit as well, but just a quick fire, yes or no. Are we concerned with their tall forward line against our depleted defense?
Yes, big time.
Yeah. Perfect. Jesse's brought up a comment here. Butler will kick a couple. Higgins same. Membry same. Someone will kick a bag. Out of those sort of 3, and you can add Sharman in there, who's going to be the one that kicked the bag this Saturday night if it was to happen? Alana first?
Oh, on form, I'm backing Higgins, and I probably quick shout out to Higgins because, he's been a little bit of a whipping boy, but he's had a bloody good season for a small forward. So, I reckon he can get it done and snag a few.
Yeah. Ollie, you agree, or you got someone else in mind?
I'm going to go Tim Membry. I think Higo's been incredible, but I think Max Michaelini's a really good small defender, so I think Higgins will be a little bit quieter than he usually is, so I'm going to go Skunk.
Yeah, and Scarlett, is the Butler for you, or are you going to go with either Higgins or Membry?
I'm going to say Member as well. I think he's due for it, and I think he looks like he's getting there.
Yeah, he looked eager on the weekend, running around the ground, creating contests. I know he didn't probably hit the scoreboard. He probably stole one of Mason Woods as well, which we won't touch on. But I think he's due for one. He does like to play in Adelaide as well, if we remember back a few years ago with the scissor kick goal. Harvey's got here, will Jimmy play on Rochelle or Keys if he plays forward as well? Scarlett, I'll start with you. Go back the reverse way. Jimmy Webster, does he go to Keys or Rochelle to start with?
I think my instinct says Rochelle, to be honest. Yeah.
Yep. Is that just through pace and skill or just to nullify his influence?
Yeah, probably just to nullify his influence. I feel like, we see him go to players like Charlie Cameron, and that's probably just the comparison I'm making in my head, to be honest.
No, absolutely. I like it. Ollie, your thoughts?
I think it'll be whoever plays deepest out of Keys and Rochelle, because I don't see Jimmy following either of them up towards the midfield. So whoever sits deep and at the feet of the tools, I think he'll take.
And Alana, lastly for that one?
Yeah, my instinct was Rochelle as well. Yeah, I reckon that's the matchup.
Absolutely. Ben Keith is the worry, though, if I'm completely honest. He kicked 4 last week, and he just finds a way to be damaging without being skillful. No offense to him. He's not the cleanest player with the ball in hand, but he finds a way. Harvey's commenting a fair bit, so I'm going to bring him up again. Thanks for your input, Harvey. If we can beat Sydney's midfield, we should be able to beat any midfield. I know we're versing the Crows, but from a whole competition perspective, is that right? If we can beat Sydney's midfield, we should be beating anyone in the middle of the ground, Scarlett?
Yeah, but also I don't feel like I believe it. I feel like it's that belief factor, isn't it? Like, I don't know. I'm going to say yes. I'm confident that we can do it.
No, that's fair. I feel like the more substance we get, the better we can be, or the more confident we can be in that statement. Ollie, I know you watch a lot of football. Is the way we played, going to stack up against all 17 clubs?
It's really a week by week thing, because we've seen, like, last week was incredible against a very, very strong, arguably strongest midfield in the competition. But then we've also seen us get dominated by weaker midfield. So, on their day, they can beat anyone, 100%. But yeah, more consistency would be better.
And Alana, just your thoughts on our midfield against everyone else?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with our midfield the past month, probably with the exception of the Port Adelaide game where we just let Horn Francis get off the chain too much for mine. But aside from that, I think they've actually been very, very solid. They were sort of my talking point for the first half of this season, saying they were sort of the ones letting us down, and sort of blame them for our forward line not functioning and whatnot. But I actually think they've got it together a bit more the last month, and bringing someone like Filippo in, I think, just completely takes the pressure off someone like Steele, who's had to do it all on his own. So I think Steele must have just absolutely been loving what Filippo came in and did for us, because I think it just allowed him to not have to have the burden of carrying our midfield when he had someone like that helping out. And then, someone like that coming in also allows Clark and that to have a bit more of a contribution and not have so much pressure. So, yeah, I think when we can spread the load a bit more, we're just getting better and better. And, really looking forward to seeing if Filippo can back that up and we can match it against the Crows.
Absolutely, absolutely. Last one for a quick fire round. Nick, this might be out there, but is Jack Higgins, a chance for All-Australian? Alana, I'll start with you. We'll go back in reverse. Is he a sneaky chance?
Yeah, I feel it's really unfortunate for the guy, because I reckon if he didn't miss those 3 games, you'd be looking at probably 35 goals at this point in the season, and that would put him right up there. But I think missing those 3 games might just not work in his favour. But I'm really, really think he has a chance if you can put through what he's done. But yeah, just so dirty on that suspension. But he's had such a good year, and I think he's worthy. But I don't know. I feel a small forward, they find it hard to break into the All-Australian team. I mean, I think Milne made it twice in his whole career, and I would justify him being All-Australian in that position a lot more than that. So when you look at it that way, perhaps not. But if I was picking the team, I'd probably be choosing Jack.
Is that the St Kilda bias coming in, or a little bit? No, that's fair. We'll allow it. Ollie, again, pose a question to you. Is it more of a general just squad of 44 that he makes, or is he actually a chance to make and get his first blazer?
I think if he's got I think there's 8 games left. If he has a strong last 2 months, like he's been playing well in the last couple of weeks, I think he's a shout, because I'm looking at the goal kicking. Stringer's 32, Stengel 31, Hayward 28, then Higgins 27. Those are the small forwards. So again, though, Butler in, I think it was 2020, got completely snubbed from the team, but they only picked one small forward. So
Yeah.
I don't think they give small forwards enough credit. So I don't think he'll make it in. He could if he has a massive last 8 weeks, but yeah, I'm going to say probably not.
No, that's fair. Scarlett, would Jack Higgins look good in the All-Australian blazer?
Oh, so good. I think based on just how they set up the All-Australian and like how little credit and space they kind of give to small forwards, I'd say no. But God, I think he's very deserving. Like, I look at those other players listed, and I don't know if Stengel is still a sore spot for anyone, but like, I'd take Higgins over Stengel any day.
Yeah, I feel like out of all the players that Ollie did mention, Higgins is the one that, you know, does a lot more defensively as well within the forward, you know, that forward arc. So hopefully that counts for a little bit. But as long as he's playing well to end of the season, that's all that matters for the Saints sort of going forward on that end. Last one, and this is just from me. Looking at that list that we've announced for Saturday night, who's going to be the sub this weekend? We'll start with you, Ollie, in the middle.
I'm going to go with Zach Jones purely because Patton was a sub last week, and I think the 2 outs elevates him into the 22. But it's a toss-up. Could be either, but I'll go with Jones.
Yeah, and I also agree Patton's not a sub-worthy player, if we're completely honest. Not to, you know, throw him to the side, but he doesn't have that immediate impact on a game. He has it over a long-lasting period. Alana, who's your thoughts on the subs this week?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but I reckon we'll make Patton the sub again, which, yeah, I mean, you know, I say it every week. I hate the sub rule, but yeah, I just think he didn't really come in and do that much, so we'll probably just persist with him in the sub position. Like, it makes no sense, but that's what I think we'll do.
Yeah, look, it's a weird one. I don't like the sub either. Scarlett, are you with Patton or are you with Jones?
I'm gonna go with Zach Jones as the sub. Just kind of rolls off the tongue at this point.
Got to find a spot for him somewhere. Sometimes it gets like that. Jack's also thrown up. Darcy Wilson wouldn't be a bad thing. Give him just some sort of a rest and give him a chance to make an immediate impact as well. I thought he started the game really well. He kicked the first goal, but that's also an option. So that's our team for this week. Hopefully we can continue the form that we had against the Swans. I'd love to be able to go over to Adelaide and beat the Crows because I really don't like the Crows, if I'm completely honest. But just before we finish up, and for those that are watching at home, I want to know your thoughts. This weekend's game, the end result. Alana, we'll start with you. Can we make it 2 in a row?
Yes, I didn't back us the week before, and look what they did. So, yeah, I have to jump back on now for sure. And yeah, I reckon we can bring it home. Can we not have another close game though? Can we just like, I'm talking like 20 points, like when most people probably consider that a close game, but for me that's like a thrashing. So can we just have a nice 20-point win? That would be good.
Look, it'd be nice. The heart would love it. Scarlett, do we get the chocolates over in Adelaide?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's very blind, but I always have great faith going to Adelaide. And I know statistically that's so unfounded. But I just feel good about this one. I think we're due for 2 in a row. Kind of like I touched on before, I think when our South Australian boys play in Adelaide, and I always find it very exciting. And I think we've got quite a few of them on the team this week. Yeah, like Alana said, 20 points. I'll take it.
Look, I couldn't agree more. Before I dump to you, Ollie, Jesse, Saints by 55. Jack's going through his tipping, solid 8 out of 9 tipping last week after doubting the Saints. If I'm not mistaken, Jack, were you one that said that the Saints could actually pull it off? If you can confirm, that'd be nice. Lenny reckons, although Nixie seems like a nice guy, let's get that boy sacked. Look, I think it's possible. If we are to go over and win and beat the Crows, even just not convincingly, but, you know, that 20 to 30-point margin, and maybe the last game that Matthew Nick coaches for the Crows. Chris, sorry about last week. Saints by 30 points. Last one, Guy reckons, I think Saints can win easy this week. I don't like putting Saints and easy in the same conversation because it's very, very unlikely. And that's both from a win and a loss perspective. But Ollie, your thoughts this weekend?
Yeah, so quickly, I wanted to say I know I look stupid for picking us last week, but that's why I pick us every week.
Yeah, fair.
I don't have much more to add from the other two, other than 4 goals would be nice. I think we get the Chockies if we continue our form from last week. So yeah, I'll go Saints by 4 goals.
Perfect. Last comment, Anthony tipped Saints last week, tipping them this week by 15 points. We can boost that margin up by a couple, Anthony. The heart would love it. Look, I've watched this at Adelaide Oval for quite a bit. I lived over there for a bit. And we do sometimes struggle to win over there, which is a concern. But I am hopeful. Hopefully we can get the chocolates and get a good 4 to 5 goal win, put Nixie to his misery, get him sacked on Monday morning, come back home and get the last part of the season all done and dusted. This is our last away game for the year as well, which is exciting for all Melbourne fans, but also exciting for the SA fans who can get down and watch us for the last time this year. So it is important that when we do come back next week, being at Marvel for the rest of the year, we all do get to Etihad. I always say Etihad. Get down to Marvel and support the boys. The crowd was electric on Sunday. There was a lot of Swans fans, but there was a lot of noise from our Saints fans as well. So let's finish the year strong. Let's hope for a good win on Saturday night. And as always, go the mighty Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.